were some of the calls that our guest had in this morning. One company that is on the lower side is Greenlam Industry. They declared numbers yesterday. Even after the results yesterday, it went down slightly, but right now it's down about 5%. It's not that great in terms of volumes, and maybe that's why the price action is slightly more. The management is now joining us, Mr. Mittal, MD and CEO at Greenlam Industries. Mr. Mittal, can you just describe the quarter for us? Profits were absolutely flat. Any particular reason?
Hi. Yes, so profits were flat. Reason being, actually on the veneer and the laminates business, the margins have improved over, Q1 as well as, over Q2 of last financial year. We had losses in the new businesses of flooring and doors, and I think that contributed to the flattish margins. On the other reason was, at the top line growth, the growth was at about 6.7%. Overall, while the export business grew at about close to 12%, the domestic business was flattish for us in this quarter. So I think these were the main factors which contributed to a flattish margin. Having said that, the working capital cycles have improved in quarter two, so we have been able to reduce our net working capital cycle by about 3 odd days. So on the ROC front, actually there's been a small improvement in the business.
As far as your presentation is concerned, decorative veneers and allied segments saw negative EBITDA. Was there a one-off over there?
So actually in the decorative veneer and allied segment, we have 3 businesses. We have the decorative veneer panel business, we have the engineered flooring business, and we have the engineered door business. So of these 3 businesses, the engineered floor and the engineered door business saw loss of about 5 crores at the EBITDA level, while the decorative panel business had EBITDA about 15% and about 4 crores. So these are the amongst these 3 businesses, the engineered floor and the door are the new businesses which we're trying to sustain and establish in the market, and these are going through a stabilization phase, if you may say so, and that's the reason there was a loss in these 2 businesses.
But was it like a one-off quarter, and you expect it to come back to a positive EBITDA next quarter, or it will take some more time?
No, the flooring and door will take some more time to come back to a positive EBITDA. I think we're talking a couple of more quarters to really build that business up to a positive EBITDA level. But the veneer business is obviously a profit-making business for us, and that'll continue doing well.
Right. As far as your liability is concerned, or if I look at the long-term and the short-term borrowings,
right,
it's declined quite a bit, and that's the reason for, I think, ROE to go up. Any particular reason? Did you generate free cash flows which led to debt repayment?
Yes. So if you look at the business, we have been able to reduce debt by about 18-20 crores on the standalone basis, and that's contributed by improved working capital cycle and by profit generation, while our capital expenditures have been absolutely controlled and within our plans for this year. So I think all these factors, that's improvement of working capital cycles, well managed capex cycles, and the margins, all that contributed to reduction of debt.
Right. Mr. Mittal, your sales were higher in your laminates and allied segment, but realizations moved lower, nearly 5% lower.
Yes.
What's happening when it comes to pricing? Why are the realizations lower?
So if you look at the realizations of laminates, so there's been a reduction of realizations primarily in the export business, although the quantity growth in the export business is over 20%, year on year, actually slightly more than 25%. The realizations have come down by about 10-12% in the export business, while the domestic business realization versus the sequential basis there's a reduction, while year-on-year basis there's a growth of about 5.5-6% on the domestic business. So the reason for export business relation is, I think, there's been a slow sales of one of our value-added category in this quarter, which we hope to build up going ahead. And also I think in certain markets because of currency challenges, there's been a price correction compared to last year's quarter two. So these are the 2 reasons why there's a difference in the currency in the realization.
What is the scope of improvement for the domestic markets? Can you tell us what is the demand structure like?
Well, the domestic business, had been growing well for us for the last 4 or 5 quarters, and this is the only quarter where we've slipped. I think we'll be able to pull up the numbers going ahead. Demand-wise, market, there's no great demand in the domestic place. But having said that, we've launched new products. We are expanding our distribution network, and we are also, fighting to take away share from the unorganized companies. So we should be able to eventually close a domestic business with a 10-12% growth this year.
Right. What is your utilization like, and can you talk to us about your expansion plans?
So utilization across our various businesses in laminates in Q2, utilization was about 113%, and we are expanding capacity, which would come up by Q2 in FY18 by about 16-17% of capacity expansion is happening there. Veneers, we have adequate capacity right now. We're at about 34-35% utilization. So we don't need an expanded capacity there. Neither do we need expansion or any additional capacity in floor and doors. We have adequate capacities which we built last year and the year before that. So if you look at the business, the expansion of capacity is really only coming up in the laminates business, which will happen in Q2 of financial year 18.
All right. Wanted to understand from you, when it comes to the veneers business, there are some product categories there where you're not seeing profits. When will this situation change? When do you think break-even and maybe even profitability will come through? You said that you're increasing your distribution network. That will also involve costs. So the margin outlook, and on one hand, you have a few product lines that see losses, plus distribution costs, and new launch costs as well. So for margins, what's the outlook like?
So if you look at the margins, the laminates business in Q2 was about 14.5% margin. In H1, the laminates business was at about 15% operating margin. So laminates business will continue to maintain stroke effort will be there to improve the margins. In the veneer business, like I said earlier, there are three segments. The decorative veneer panel business in Q2 had about 15% margin. And that's been sustained over the last several years. So they will be able to maintain the margins. The challenge is on the flooring, the door business. So I think in these two businesses, I think we're looking at another financial year. So probably by FY18, we should be break even, in these two businesses particularly.
Right. As far as innovation and value addition of products is concerned, that's the way of growth ahead. Would that be one of the key focus areas?
Well, you could say that, and that's what we've done over the last year and a half, 2 years. In spite of a tougher market situation, we've been able to grow the business. We've launched new products across all our business categories in laminates and veneers and floors and doors. I think so that's something we'll continue doing going ahead also.
As far as the unorganized market is concerned, how much is the unorganized market? Can you just give us a ballpark figure and say if GST comes in, what will be the benefit to an organized player like you?
So if you have to look at this across our businesses. So in laminates, about 50-60% of the market domestically is run by the unorganized competition. In the veneer business, besides us, there's potentially just two more players who are so-called organized. So again, about 65-70% is unorganized. Flooring, there's no other producer in the country right now. Everything's being met through imports. Doors in that segment, there's no other producer in the country. It's either imports or carpentry produced doors, which are called pre-hung or finished doors. So I think if GST comes into impact the business, it'll be positive because that's what we hear now. It again depends on at what rates the GST comes in, etc. But overall, I think the compliance levels, the ease of doing business, the ability to compete with unorganized players will be far superior. So I think overall it should be positive for us.
Mr. Mittal, thank you so much for explaining us about Greenlam Industries, the way ahead, and if GST happens, what happens to an organized player like you into the plywood market.